Greg knew that he would not be alone anymore. Quite an emotional book. So, as you can see, that book, it deals with a child that has a hearing loss, conductive hearing loss. And so we could see in that book a few different categories that activities are now going to focus on. And they are signs or indicators of what we as teachers can look for to identify if a child has a conductive hearing loss, and whether any examples that popped out to you from the book. I'll give you one. A child that might often ask for repeats to what you say. What did Greg do in the book to cope with the work? Watching other kids. That's right. So another group will also be doing what can teachers do to accommodate a student with conductive hearing loss. Now that can be very general, such as face the class when they speak, so a child might be able to use their lip reading skills as well. Or it can be specific for an activity such as mathematics. Group 3, you're going to have the book and you're going to look at the perceptions of the two different teachers. So we're looking how it affects the student. So the first teacher in that book saw the wrong answer and assumed straight away that Greg was daydreaming. While the second teacher came in, saw that he was actually getting the work done, but there was like a mismatch. Something wasn't quite right. So she looked further into it. And the last group are going to just list down some emotions. How would you feel if you were Greg in the classroom with teacher 1? And how would you feel in the class with teacher 2 if you were Greg? And the behaviours that you might display. So for example, if you had teacher 1, you'd be sad, you wouldn't fit in, you'd feel like you weren't fitting in. With teacher 2, Greg became excited, he'd become more motivated to learn. So you spend 3 minutes doing this, just jot down in groups some really quick points and then we'll share at the end. So
4 minutes left then.
Yep, group 1, Stephen, Helen, this group here. Group 2, you guys. Group 3, can this table, this table. And group 4. Yeah, it's
oh, thanks. You see me cry.
Are you with us?
No, we've got 3 minutes.
What is a sign that indicated so often asked
Can someone write
maybe that what the other teacher knows is a mismatch.
So we're looking for signs, mispronounced words could be a very simple one.
That's how he was reading.
You mean visual cue? What is it doing that time?
The actual speech.
That's a response word. This one's late, like running.
So this, I've got a checklist. Focusing on the teacher's
Modified. It's obviously keeping very private. So
Doesn't necessarily indicate that she's moving
Alright, 30 more seconds.
Maybe delayed response period is big too. Like he's having to process all. Yeah.
Just even slower.
Confusion.
All right, everybody. The exercise just requires you to get down a few thoughts to get you thinking. We'll just share really quickly. I have a minute and a half left. So group one, you were jotting down some signs and indicators. Can you give us 3?
Okay, unable to follow instructions, mispronounced words, delayed response to activity, erase, focusing on the teacher's lips.
Yes. Okay, so if they're looking at you more intently than another, that could be a sign that there's a conductive hearing loss there. Group 2, what can teachers do to accommodate a student? Just give us 3 examples.
Sure. Non-verbal cues, written instructions, visual cues. There's a lot more, but
Obviously, that's great. And we saw a lot in the book as well with the second teacher. Group 3, how were the perceptions of the teachers different?
We noticed with the first teacher, you actually didn't see their face at all. It was always the way they stood in it was a very threatening stance. Whereas the next teacher, you saw her face, which indicated we thought communication with Greg and eye gaze and acknowledgement.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, it's very interesting in the illustrative kind of literature.
Yeah. And group 4, how would you feel and the behaviour that followed if you were Greg and had teacher 1?
Okay. We thought that the student, if they had teacher 1, would have low self-esteem, that they'd be sad, confused, isolated, and start to believe that they weren't important in the class, or that they weren't smart, or they might be embarrassed and ashamed and feel very alone.
Definitely, yeah.
And then with teacher 2, surprised that the teacher acknowledged them and looked at them, maybe excited about the fact that they were being able to be included in tasks, and maybe start to feel accepted and empowered.
Definitely.
Smart.
Yeah.
They might increase their self-respect, motivation, be thankful, feel like they belong. And we thought with teacher 2 it was particularly important that the teacher didn't actually take the class aside and say this person has a disability, but just dealt with the actual disability discreetly.
Great, yeah, definitely. So, guys, that's really good. Just in conclusion, 1 in 3 primary age children that I read in some research may have a conductive hearing loss that you don't know about. So, I hope today's just informed you a little bit how we can look for those children and how we can deal with those children in our classrooms. Just before I go, anyone know the significance of the butterfly borders on the pages?
symbol for the deaf.
Very good. Yes, butterflies are born are deaf creatures, but they are very beautiful. So I'll just leave you with that thought.